Welcome to the TechLink Health Podcast, an on-demand source for the top trending healthcare topics and insights. Delivered by key opinion and emerging leaders and as featured on the TechLink Health app. The healthcare industry is rapidly evolving, so our goal is to connect listeners to the most relevant insights, ranging from digital health to financial well-being to interesting side gigs. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the TechLink Health Podcast, where we explore the intersection of health, technology, and innovations that are helping to create the future of healthcare and life sciences. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Saman, and today we have a very exciting episode lined up. We'll be diving into the future of personal health monitoring and connected health with BeamO, the revolutionary compact home health checkup device by Withings. For those unfamiliar, Withings has long been a leader in the health tech space, known for creating connected devices that empower consumers to make better health part of daily life. BeamO represents the next step in that journey with cutting-edge technology designed to give users real-time insights into their health and well-being. The evolution of connected care and the technologies that are paving the way for the future are a core theme of TechLink Health. And many of the past episodes have highlighted the importance of discoverability for emerging technologies such as BeamO, alongside meaningful insights to help in the adoption of these innovations for consumers, clinicians, and companies. In today's episode, we're joined by Livia Robic, a biomedical engineer by training and a product manager at Withings. She'll discuss BeamO in detail, explore its key features, and consider what the future holds for this device in the larger context of connected health. We'll also talk about how this technology fits into the broader trend of discoverability and emerging health technologies for consumers, clinicians, and health-focused organizations. It goes without saying that Livia and the Withings team are revolutionizing the global landscape for health and wellness in real time, and we look forward to getting her perspectives on the podcast. So without further delay, we're excited to welcome Livia Robic of Withings to the podcast. Livia, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So to start and to give our listeners some background, can you take a moment to introduce yourself in a bit more detail and tell us about your journey in the connected health space and the path that has led you to your work on BeamO with Withings?
Yes, I'd love to. First of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. So my name is Livia Robic, and as you said, I'm a product manager at Withings. I did a master's degree in biomedical engineering at Imperial, and then went on to working on medtech devices as well as a mechanical engineer. So these devices were more intended for doctor training, and that really gave me the taste of combining technology and medicine for a greater project to advance healthcare. And by touching to these topics, I've really been interested in this domain and heard about Withings. And that's how I landed in Withings as a product manager. So a role that takes the project from the very start, from the very idea of a product to getting it on the market to the customers to enhance healthcare.
Well, thank you for sharing more about your personal background and your journey up to this point. Let's go ahead and dive into the technology behind BeamO. So we know it's a compact home health checkup device, but for our listeners who might be new to the product, could you give us an overview of how it works, maybe what it looks like, and what makes it stand out from other devices in the market?
Of course, so BeamO is a 4-in-1 health multi-scan. So it's a device that encompasses 4 different sensors integrated into a small portable device that fits within your hand. It has 4 sensors, so a digital stethoscope, which allows you to listen to your heart and lung sounds and to do remote auscultation of your body that you can then send to your doctor. It has a contactless thermometer, so just in a couple seconds by scanning over your forehead, you can get your body temperature and it detects fever episodes. We also have a 1-lead electrocardiogram, so with 2 electrodes on the side of the device, which allows you to measure your heart activity and can also detect signs of atrial fibrillation with our clinically validated embedded algorithm. And embedded in one of the electrodes, there's also a miniaturized pulse oximeter, which measures your blood oxygen levels and gives you insights on your respiratory health. So these four sensors allow you to measure different metrics of your body, which is then all synced to the app. And the device is really a revolution in the sense that it's something that is for the user to monitor his health from home. Everything is integrated into a small device that can be taken at home, on the go, anywhere, and with a very clear user interface, which makes it really accessible to all users.
That's really amazing that you can fit all of that into that small little device. And it's quite apparent that BeamO is truly revolutionary and differentiated in many ways. Along these lines, I want to dig deeper into the data and the actionable insights that are made possible by this device. So, to this point, what health metrics does BeamO track? And more importantly, how do those metrics contribute to helping users better manage their own health? And furthermore, along those lines, how does BeamO ensure the accuracy of the data that it collects?
So BeamO tracks different metrics to measure both your cardiac and respiratory health. So these metrics are the electrocardiogram, the SpO2, so blood oxygen levels, with your heart rate, your heart and lung sounds, and your body temperature. All these different metrics are synced to the app, which allows the user to see trends over time and to prevent any diseases, any changes in their health can be automatically seen and forwarded to their doctor instantly to really take action on their health and visualize their data in a longitudinal way. And in terms of accuracy, we are clearing the device for all the four sensors to be medical devices. So each sensor has undergone clinical studies to validate their accuracy against gold standards on the market.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the users of BeamO, the people that will be using the device, and how it might make a difference in their personal health journeys. Who would you say would be the ideal user for BeamO? And perhaps you could share a real world use case where this device has made an impact.
Absolutely, yeah. So the device was developed really for telemedicine to revolutionize the world of telemedicine and at home health monitoring. So this device is intended for families who want to monitor their health from home, both their personal health, but their parents' health, their children's health, with just one device that can have up to 8 users. The capacity of very easily doing an at home health checkup and getting an overall overview of your health is really the key point of BeamO, but also the bridge that we build with the doctor. So, not only for the family to monitor their health and have that information, but also for them to very easily share it to their healthcare professional. Through the app, we have both the option of a PDF sharing, but also in a more innovative manner, we can share a health link, which is a very simple one-click link where the doctor has access to all your data, can listen to the stethoscope sounds remotely, and really give feedback on your health. If your children is sick and has a fever episode, you can instantly take his temperature, his lung recordings, and share them to your doctor to have an at-home telehealth appointment. But also, the device is really intended for people with chronic conditions to really empower these people by having access to their health outside of doctor's appointments, which can take a lot of time to go to the doctor's office. So all the time that you're at home, you don't actually know how you're doing specifically. And BeamO really enables you to have a day-to-day trend overview of your health and take action, see what works in your lifestyle to improve your health, and see any onset changes in your health in general. So people with a respiratory chronic condition or a cardiac chronic condition would really benefit from BeamO to monitor their heart activity, their lung sounds, their respiratory health with the pulse oximeter, and be able to easily share it to their doctor on a daily basis.
Fantastic. Yes, as a cardiologist, I can start envisioning ways that you might use this, perhaps with people with heart failure who have been difficult to manage, or even people who are post-op from heart surgeries. That could be a really important use of this device.
Yeah, we've developed this device hand in hand with doctors using their feedback of what sensors would be useful, how they would be used by patients, how the information would be useful to doctors. And one case that's really been spoken a lot by doctors was, for example, COPD patients. So it's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And these patients usually have oxygen supplements and are people who are more fragile to infections, things like that. So having BeamO to monitor your temperature, to monitor your SpO2 and your lung sounds is really a tangible use case where the device would really be useful.
Fantastic. And especially the integration of the stethoscope is something that kind of goes beyond what most consumers would otherwise have access to. So, thank you for sharing those valuable insights and use opportunities. As healthcare continues to embrace these digital tools, how do you see BMO integrating with existing healthcare platforms or telemedicine services? So, would the data be easily shareable? I think you touched on that a moment ago with the doctors and other clinicians. And how might this improve the overall patient experience?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier the Health Link, which we've developed and is coming out next month. And the innovation with the Health Link is that it's a link that is completely agnostic of any telehealth platforms, which means that users don't need to have a specific channel with doctors to communicate, but they can use it with any platform they already have, any already existing platform. And they can share this link in parallel so that the patient and the doctor can have access to the data in parallel of their video call, in parallel of the platform they usually use for taking appointments and exchanging with the doctor. This link is accessible over 7 days, which means that the doctor can look at the information before the appointment, after the appointment, if he has any questions, which really means that data is always accessible. And with the trends and the graphs and everything is available over the previous months, so he can really see the trends over time.
Fantastic. So, looking ahead, what do you see as the long term vision for BMO? And more broadly, what can we expect to see in the future for connected health devices? For example, if we look into the future, say to 2040 or 2050, where we expect these kind of innovations to continue to grow. And along those lines, what are some ways that deep tech, such as generative AI and these devices, might be able to work together to improve people's health?
Yeah, so first of all, in terms of BMO, what we see for the next coming years is first to get the device to the markets, to get adherence from the users that use it more and more with the doctors, have the doctors really promote the device, see its usefulness in at home health monitoring. We would be looking at new sensors that we can integrate to the device to make it more complete. Today, it has 4 different sensors, which are the 4 main sensors we saw useful to doctors. But obviously, there are other sensors out there that could be integrated to the device to make it more complete. And also, in terms of use cases, so I touched a lot on using the device at home to manage health, but we also really want to expand the use case for the healthcare professionals. So, for example, nurses that would have a device like BMO in their bag and would go from house to house to manage a patient's health from their home, people who live in medical deserts or are old and cannot necessarily go to the doctor's office. This would be a very useful use case as well for BMO. And we really want to expand on all those use cases on the long term, which, yeah, would be, I think, a really big work for the next 2, 3, 5 to 10 years. Also, to get reimbursement on the device in Europe was a big challenge that we want to overcome and have in the next years in Europe and both in the US. And also, in terms of innovation for BeamO, but other connected devices in general, I think something we really want to do is to have the sensors and the data that we extract from the sensors combined to see greater picture of the patient's health. So today with BeamO, for example, you would take an electrocardiogram, you would take an SpO2 measurement, and we would have those separate insights on your health. But what will be even better is to combine all those data using AI, using other sensors from other connected devices to really get more insights on the patient's health.
Yes, I can see that really helping. I don't think anything will ever replace that human to human connection, but having this device and connecting it to AI is going to help to perhaps hone in on what might be going on and help to bring a focus into areas that maybe the physician might want to delve more deeply into. And the idea of being able to take this to places where a doctor is not accessible sounds especially compelling, especially when you think about the stethoscope, because being able to hear a patient do part of the physical exam remotely can be a real challenge. So if there's a kind of a standardized way that somebody is able to use this device to help their physician help them, I can imagine that could be a huge benefit.
Absolutely. And actually, you're referring to the stethoscope, and that's also something we really want to work on in the future years. Today, we use the stethoscope for recording and transferring to the doctor. But what we really want to work on as well and integrate to the device is to have an early detection of sounds, of respiratory sounds or cardiac sounds, to inform the user that something might not be normal and to alert him that he should send those recordings to the doctor, and also to do some triage or some pre-screening at home for those patients, which would be very useful today.
Wonderful. So let's zoom out and talk about the broader health landscape. So, with so many new devices emerging, it can be hard for consumers and even clinicians to discover and to trust emerging technologies. And that's a theme core to TechLink Health is helping people to find these devices and understand what they are capable of. So, what are your thoughts here in general? And what are best practices to optimize discoverability alongside building trust with both consumers and clinicians?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges today is to really be transparent for the manufacturers of these medical devices. For example, transparent on the validation and the evidence based data that comes with the devices. So the users can understand how reliable the data is, what validations has gone through to get this device on the market. So clear, transparent information on clinical validations. The company should also make research, clinical trials, case studies, all this information readily available to the users so that the users can see that there's scientific evidence that's backing those devices. Most importantly, also for users to understand the importance of regulatory approvals and certifications for devices. So things like FDA clearance for the US and CE clearance in Europe is definitely something critical that I think many users are not necessarily aware of, especially with today, as you mentioned, there are so many connected health devices coming to the market. It's hard to know which ones to trust and which ones not to trust. But having that regulatory approval was really certify the safety, efficacy, and the compliance of these devices. There's also a big attention that needs to be brought to data privacy and security of your data with different standards and regulations that are put in place. And users should really look out for those and really inform themselves on how the devices they're using do testify that the data is secure and private. And finally, I think users should look at other users' reviews and also doctor testimonials using these devices and having doctors back the devices, say that they've used them, also have doctors directly recommend devices like BeamO would be super powerful because that would really testify the value of the device and its accuracy and really help users be informed and discover devices like BeamO.
Those are all great points, especially the safety and the reliability that the FDA and other organizations are responsible for certifying or at least clarifying. And then staying on this topic of discoverability, on one hand, the first step to adoption is discoverability, being able to find it. And then on the other hand, there's this growing need to reskill or upskill to enhance the clinical knowledge base. So it's not just enough to know that it's there, but to be able to use it, to become comfortable with the new technology. And we've got this proliferation of connected devices that are entering the market. So let's talk about those topics and what are your thoughts here? How can medical education be enhanced so that people do develop comfort and trust in this device?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge today, especially with medical devices being emergent in our generation. I think hopefully with the generations to come, this will be less of an obstacle that users have to face. But today, I would say for the upskilling or reskilling in the face of connected devices, what will be very useful is to have educational campaigns and accessible information to users. So, for example, something like a centralized knowledge hub where all the medical devices and technologies could be cataloged, reviewed, explained, that would really facilitate the adoption for users to understand what devices are useful for what and are recommended and certified. And having these educational campaigns as well to simplify all the jargon that translates all those different health metrics that aren't necessarily understandable to a regular consumer that wants to take action on his health and adopt a medical device. Also, I think it's a challenge for us medical device manufacturers to ensure these devices are understandable and the interfaces are clear and simple and the data interpretation is also clear and simple to make sure there's no misuse of the devices and that everything is user friendly so that any person from an elderly patient who wants to take day-to-day metrics with a device like BeamO to a parent that's using the device to someone younger who's really health driven. It has to be accessible to all those different use cases. And the data has always to be clearly explained and shown to the user so he can take action on his health based on that data and on those results. And then more on the doctor side, because obviously doctors as well now are faced more and more with connected devices and patients coming to them saying, oh, I have a connected watch, I have a connected blood pressure monitor. And so I think that it's also the doctors and the healthcare professionals' role to also be aware of the new medical devices that are coming onto the market and to be able to tell and recommend to patients what are the ones that are reliable, that would be useful for them, and to really be aware of all those different technologies that are coming to the market.
Those are really important points because currently it can be difficult for a doctor or other clinician to be faced with all these different devices and to know what they are, what's trustworthy, how they might integrate that into taking the best care of their patients. So, as these kind of devices, connected devices like BeamO, become more integrated into the healthcare ecosystem, what are some of the challenges and the risks and potential dangers that might need to be addressed along the way?
I think with a huge number of connected health devices emerging on the market, one of the biggest challenges is to always ensure data privacy. I think that's the core topic, and that's why there's more and more regulations and laws that are put in place to make sure this is controlled. But obviously, not all devices that come to the market are trustworthy and respect those regulations. So I think that's really something that has to be enforced and on the lookout for any device that wouldn't be respecting this to make sure it would be removed from the market. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the next years is really to ensure data privacy and cybersecurity. I think also a challenge now that we're having more and more of those devices in the hands of users is to make sure, I was touching on it a little bit earlier, but to make sure that it's always user friendly, the usability is always clear. For example, the stethoscope, I think on BeamO is definitely the most innovative sensor of all the four of them. Users have had thermometers in their homes for years and years now. This one is a digital connected thermometer, so it makes it more innovative than what we used to have in our medical cabinet, but it's still something that's pretty straightforward, and the interpretation of our temperature is something that I think everyone understands quite widely. But the stethoscope, however, it's a device that is more delicate. We're not used to using it at home. We're always used to a doctor using it and breathe in, breathe out, and then that's all we have to do. Now we're asking you to actually use it, place it on your body, listen, see if the recording's a good quality, and then share it to your doctor. So I think there's a huge training here and a big challenge for these types of sensors that users are getting in their hands to make sure that the education really follows and that there's no misinterpretation or any dangers that come out of it from misdiagnosis or self-diagnosis of users when they shouldn't be doing that at home.
Great points. Yeah, the self diagnosis can often take people down a path that is possibly frightening and also may prevent them from getting the care that they really need going in the right direction. So, I think to your point, having good educational resources for patients and easily accessible information for physicians is key to helping to make these technologies accessible and usable.
And actually, talking about accessibility, there's also another topic that I didn't mention, but it's also cost. So that's more a challenge on the manufacturer side, but it's always ensuring that these devices are being more and more tech oriented with new sensors, a lot of R&D that goes into developing those products, but ensuring that they're always accessible to the average user is also a big challenge, I think, and especially in the years to come, to always make it accessible, because as long as it's not accessible to the average user, then we're not checking that box of making health at home accessible to most users.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into my next question. So, in the past on the podcast, we've often talked about the global implications of connected devices and the ability to leverage those innovations to improve accessibility as a way to enhance health equity, both across the United States, across Europe, but also across other parts of the world. And so, can you give your thoughts here and how can BMO and other Internet of Health things, Internet of medical things help in these areas of world interest?
Yeah, I think that devices like BeamO are definitely improving healthcare access. The first point I can think of is, for example, medical deserts. Devices like BeamO make health accessible to users that live far away from the closest doctor's office and allows them to have a more day-to-day check of their health without having to go into the local hospital that might be a 2-hour drive and to only go when really they aren't doing well. And they know when they're not doing well by having access to that information daily and seeing the trends. So I think for remote monitoring and telehealth, this device is definitely a big innovation, and it allows users to track vital signs, to manage their chronic conditions, and intervene early without the need for patients to travel far away. There's also another topic in which it helps is with mobile and wearable technologies. So these devices allow users to track their health on a daily basis and have a connectivity from their home. Devices like BeamO have both DLE, Wi-Fi, and cellular connectivity, which means that even for users that are more elderly or users that live in medical deserts, their data can always be transferred to their doctor from the comfort of their home. And then finally, for I think chronic disease management, as we mentioned earlier, this device is definitely making it more accessible because once again, the user can monitor his health daily from home, track changes, and don't necessarily need to travel far away or wait long months to get a doctor's appointment.
Yeah, all great points. And I'm thinking particularly of people with conditions like congestive heart failure, where they may not have access to a specialist in their community or even within several hundred miles, but to be able to access that type of care by using a device like this could really have a huge impact on people's health and well-being. So wonderful perspectives. And this has been a fascinating conversation. In closing, do you have any final advice for those wanting to stay connected to the innovations that are happening in the connected device space? And how can listeners continue to follow the BeamO and the Withings journey? And also, we're always interested in any topical book recommendations or any other type of content on the subject. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think to stay in touch with all the new technologies that are coming to the market, a great way is by listening podcasts like this one to really deep dive into a topic, a new device that's coming onto the market. Also, there's a ton of magazines, and actually we have quite a few ones around the office that we get every month with specific articles on new devices or new technologies, new AI algorithms that are coming into the space to help detect new pathologies. And just to stay up to date with the latest news on BeamO, I would recommend following Withings on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and all our social channels because we post there regularly on the different innovations, both of our devices ecosystem in general, but also specifically on BeamO, which is coming to the market in the near future. And for a book that I recommend, it's a book that I read quite recently, actually, that's called The Patient Will See You Now. It's written by Eric Topol, and it's a book that offers really interesting insights into how digital health and connected devices are transforming healthcare and how they are empowering patients with their data that they have access to from their home to really reshape the way that healthcare systems are working in general and really in the same direction of prevention, empowering users to understand their health and take action on their health. And especially, as a product manager for BeamO, I found that book really interesting because it's very tangible with my day-to-day work and the perspectives that we have for this device once it comes to the market.
Excellent. So it sounds like it's going to be easy for our listeners to connect with BeamO and with Withings either by LinkedIn or Instagram or other social accounts. And the book, The Patient Will See You Now by Eric Topol, will link to that in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights. My guest today has been Livia Robic of Withings, and it's clear that Withings will continue to create technologies that people love to use, which is a key enabler to making better health part of daily life. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the TechLink Health podcast for more conversations at the intersection of health and technology. We'll be back soon with another exciting episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. TechLink Health is a healthcare advisory platform for consumers and organizations to stay informed with the latest insights while connecting with healthcare experts for telehealth, e-consults, and consulting services. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.